The streets from before is not the streets of today. ReedMySole, creator on YouTube. Check him out. He does a lot of hip hop and footwear related content, but mostly hip hop of late. He recently had a video about how hip hop is more conscious than street.
The streets of today, which I made a video about this that ruffles some feathers. The streets of today are not the streets of yesterday. The street dudes that funded hip hop back in the days, they did not want to go on Vlad. They did not want to tell you that they were in the car and passed to the next dude that knocked Tupac off. They don't want to Keefy D themselves. They don't want to Vlad 22 themselves. They don't want to AR Ab themselves. That wasn't what they wanted to do. They were streets and they kept it street behind the scenes. The streets of yesteryear are not the streets of today. And I will keep saying that. There were codes and there were guidelines back in the days, and you did not see the street dudes. They were not trying to be celebrities. They were not trying to be in videos. They were not trying to be on podcasts. They stayed out the way. And most of those dudes will tell you today, get out of the streets.
Why do we think today's street rappers are so different than street rappers of the past, or are they?
I mean, you can go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, first of all, when he talks about the street dudes of yesteryear, there wasn't YouTube. You know, there wasn't all these avenues. You know, I think when you kind of see the documentaries, you know, the things. Remember Don Diva magazine? You know, and
Murder Dog.
Yeah, Murder. You know, I think Murder Dog was still just more Southern
Hip-hop,
music,
yeah.
but Don Diva was, you know, crime. Feds. These were crime magazines.
Feds. That's what I was thinking.
You know, there's all these things about how, other than like the real Rick Ross. Shout out to him. I met him. Another coach's all-star. You know, he wasn't flashy at all. He didn't have the crazy cars, but these, you know, some of these, when you see stories about these other street people, especially from New York, they got the most ridiculous cars, the stuff you could only get in Germany. They had the flashiest clothes. They'd be in the club throwing money. Everyone didn't have an HD camera at their disposal, and there was no YouTube. I'm not saying that they would have done the same things that we're seeing now, but you know, there was still a level of flashiness and unnecessary attention seeking that street people have always kind of been involved in.
That's real.
Now there are some codes, like, because now I've also seen the other side where I know people who move in the streets, they don't even like for people to take pictures of them. Like there was a cat, like I said, I'm not going to mention any names because I know better, who I'd see always, you know, take care of me. And when I was working at a club downtown, but if somebody came around with a camera, he didn't even want to be in a picture. So there are people who move differently. But I think when you talk about, don't Keefy D yourself, if it was 30 years ago and there were the same apparatuses as far as like Art of Dialogue or Vlad or Adam 22 or whoever you think just likes to get on whatever platform there is, if those things were around them, there'd be the same people who don't have the foresight to think, hey, maybe I shouldn't reminisce on criminal behavior on the internet that can be used as some sort of document against me in court. So I think there's always been this flashy element to people who move in the streets. There's some people who move in silence. You'd never know. Like I said, there's a difference between Meech and Terry. But, you know, and so the Meeches of the world, who, whenever there's been a level of crime, it's hard for them to be quiet. In the movie American Gangster, when he said, look, you know, the loudest person in the room is the weakest person in the room, you know? So when there was a difference between Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes until Nicky Barnes was on the cover of a magazine, you know, and this is back in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, so this element of people who live in the underworld going out of their way to seek attention, you know, which ultimately, you know, results in their demise, whether it be someone gets shot or someone has to go to jail. It's always been there. You know, it's just so amplified now because of all the platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that as far as the platforms, because me and my friends actually talk about if YouTube and things like that existed when we were kids, we either been very rich and popular right now or we'd be in jail because of some of the shit that we were doing. But as for I understand the difference in what's going on though, because being in the streets has always been something. Use the flashiness kind of as your trophy that you made it, and you're classified as hood rich. I mean, you got a nice car, you got Coogi sweaters, you got thick herringbone necklaces, you riding on D's and Vogues. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a flashy connotation to if you made it in the streets. When you talked about Frank Lucas, what got him popped was going to that fight in that big mink coat and hat, being flashy. But the difference is I can be seen as being flashy and I'm showing my money off by the things that I had and I've acquired. But there was a code that people lived by back then too, so to speak, as far as being a gangster and not telling and doing things of that nature. And it still happened. People still told and people still were dealt with in that way, shape, or form, but whatever. But now it's almost passe, or it's cool for you to go and talk about it after it's been so many years. I'm going to get on here and talk about everything that happened, like the girl that supposedly got killed by King Von, her brother. He's always online talking about stories about King Von, his sister, and other shit that happened in Chicago or whatnot. And he hasn't gotten in trouble for it, but they almost made it cool to do it and talk about it. And then even in the records, people talking about having bodies and smoking on this and that. Some of them didn't commit the crimes, but talking about the crimes alludes to you doing the crime.
I wonder how much these media platforms, such as like the Adam 20, the No Jumpers, and what academics started off doing with the Wars Chirac stuff, and Vlad, and highlighting this and kind of making celebrity out of this, kind of contributes to how this culture has kind of changed throughout time. Yeah, desensitized. Yeah, but how the culture around it has kind of, it's manifested from like flashiness in person or whatever to like, well, I can take it up a scale.
Yeah, it's all attention seeking.
Yeah, I love it. Just like, and then it's okay to, so like when the whole situation with what's his name, Tekashi 6ix9ine,
right?
We know he was involved in all of that stuff, and once he got in trouble, he started singing, and nothing happened to him.
Nothing.
So that ain't street. So he's not. Even the people that are involved in the streets ain't as street as they were back in the day. That wouldn't have. There's no way he could have got on there and talked about that shit back then. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of instances I think today that happened that would never happen back then, or it wouldn't have made it that long. It would already have been resolved. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's more trying to shop the image of being street and trying to get clout off being street. And not caring about what happens because you feel like, okay, I got money, I can fight a case. They still got to prove it. Even though I'm talking about this shit, I could have been involved but removed from it. So I think people just feel Teflon almost to everything.
I think it was an evolution. Like, so what Jay Moore said at one point in time, where the person in the street funded the artist, you know what I mean, and allowed them to do what it was that they did. And then
Too Short talks about this. He's on his whole rollout now. He talked about how like that's how his initial recordings were funded.
Yeah, and then you get into the 2000s with P and Birdman, and it's not only can I fund it, but I can do it too. You know what I mean? So like, not only can I'm the artist now. You know what I mean? So.
Well, Eazy was the artist.
Yeah,
too.
Easy.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly. Yes, he became the artist, yes.
So once you get into that, then it's like, oh, okay, that's how I clean this money up. Is I'm the artist now, and I'm coming from the back seat, and I'm stepping out in the front, and then that's evolved into niggas telling who their whole life story on Vlad, et cetera, you know what I mean? So it's just progressively gotten worse. It's always been there. It's just gotten worse.
But to your point, that's true, but they knew how to do it the right way. So fast forward to now, and you have these artists that don't know how to leave the street alone.
Yeah.
You know, so you're still doing street shit.
Even though you
definitely have all of these eyes on you. You know what I'm saying? With Lil Durk. That's crazy that you would be involved in shit like that, especially in your position. Now, even if you are, if you got some kind of rank or whatever, you shouldn't be handling any of that stuff anyway. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like how it's supposed to go.
Well, they said he was funded it, but the thing is, you should be far removed.
You should be
from
far.
that.
There's no way that anybody should be knowing that this is what you own.
Using your own credit cards is probably not the move.
Yeah, that doesn't go like that. So I think people are just too oblivious to how many eyes being on you the way that you should move. There's no way that you should still be moving like that. Same thing happened with Young Thug. He was able to get off, but I mean, come on, we know he was involved in a lot of that shit. I mean, he never said that he wasn't. He just said it wasn't a gang. But you got other people repping your record label, so to speak, that are moving like a gang. You know what I'm saying? You can't have that and still be making the money. Like, people just feel like they can't be touched once they get money. Most of the time when you get money, that's when the most eyes and attention are going to be on you anyway, because they don't want you to have that money. So you got to be careful.
God bless.
Yeah.